Okay, this is part 2 of Pillsbury versus Mason, played in Hastings, 1895. And I just covered Black's 19th move of c5, which actually doesn't work, because now White will just take the pawn with the rook. Obviously, if the pawn takes, then White just gets the queen. So that pawn is pinned. And the only move that Black really has is rather to play the rook to here to e7 or to take. And playing the rook to e7 actually gives Black's a lot of complications. So Black decides to take the rook. So then White's 21st move, the rook will take again. Obviously, if Black takes the rook with the pawn, it'll just lose the queen. And now Black, on its 21st move, will play knight to d7. And this move really is to tempt White to take with the knight, because then Black will just recapture, and then the game would be sort of a White is a pawn up, but it'd be a queen and rook in game, which would be difficult for White to win. So White is not interested in that. So it doesn't take the bait. Instead, White on its 22nd move will play rook to c6. And now the queen really doesn't have anywhere good to go. Obviously, it has to defend the knight. The only other there's only really two moves. It's playing the knight to here or playing the queen to here. And if it moves the queen back to here, whoops, I should back up to here. If it moves the queen back, sorry for that, move the queen back to here, then the rook will just pin the knight. This rook has to come and defend because the knight is attacked twice. Then the queen comes to here, and that piece is a goner. So luckily, Black has this little nice move of knight to b8, and now it's going to be beneficial for White to exchange pieces, being a pawn up. It's going to get rid of the queens. So rook takes, knight takes, and now sort of the end game. I have to cover this somewhat quickly. It'd be very tempting for White just to take the pawn here, but White realizes that the c file is still very important, so it's going to shut it down, and it's going to take the pawns when it is most beneficial to it. So if it takes the pawn now, it's going to allow Black to control the c file and maybe get some counterplay, because the rook could get down here and need some other pawns. So White's going to play knight to c6, attacking this pawn here. And now really Black cannot play the rook to here, because then White will just play knight to e7 check and winning the rook. So Black plays g6 with the idea of giving the king some air, some room to breathe. And now White takes the pawn on a7. Notice the rook cannot come to c8. But the rook will come to a8, attacking the knight. Oops. Also setting up an indirect attack on the a2 pawn. So now the rook comes back to, the knight comes back to c6. And the king, and once again the rook cannot come to c8 due to the check. So Black will play king to g7, putting it into that threat. White will play a3. So now there's no more indirect attack on that pawn, and also it prevents the knight from coming to b4. So now the rook will come to c8. So now White cannot take the pawn on d5. Now White will play g4, giving its king some room to breathe. Now Black will want to get its knight active again. Play knight to c7. Though it interferes with the movement of the rook, And now white will play on its 29th move, knight to e7, attacking the d5 pawn twice. And now black will play rook to b8, defending the b pawn. But now, once again, white is not interested in winning the pawn, because while it is a winning game if white decides to take the pawn on d5 and exchange off the knights. It would be 2 pawns up, and it would be a winning game. But white decides to go for winning as many pawns as possible. So instead, it plays rook to d7, forcing the knight to move. Where goes the e6? Now white picks up its 3rd pawn. And now the rook comes to c8. Well, actually, you can ask yourself, the rook comes to c8, abandoning the pawn, and black's idea is that it plans to drop the rook down into the enemy camp down in here and hopefully eat some of white's pawns in exchange, because now white's 3 pawns up, but its strategy is actually a little too late. The knight takes the pawn, so now white's up 4 pawns. The rook comes down. White will play just b4. Now the knight comes to g5. The idea is for black to go here and then go here, or at least the focus is this pawn. And now it's a little too late. Black's attack is going to be a little too slow, and white's just going to roll the pawns. So a4. The knight comes to e4, a5. The knight takes a6. There's nothing that can stop that pawn. So black a little too late. And that is the game between Pillsbury and Mason.